Hey there, true crime besties. Welcome back to the Stay at Home Detectives podcast. I'm Jen.
And I'm Sam.
And today we're bringing you part 2 of the Alissa Turney case. So let's dive right in. Alissa Turney went missing on May 17th, 2001 from Phoenix, Arizona. And as of today, she has not been seen or heard from since. In part 1, we dove into the basics of the case and discussed the timeline of events that took place. Today, we want to dive a little deeper and discuss some of the additional disturbing details that we came across after doing some additional research on the case. So let's start from the beginning. Alissa Turney was born in 1984 to Barbara Farner and Stephen Strum. Her parents divorced when she was just 3 years old, and her mother remarried to Michael Turney. Michael and Barbara had a large blended family. Michael had 3 kids from a previous relationship, and Barbara had Alissa and her older brother, both of whom were adopted by Turney. The couple also had a daughter together named Sarah. We talked about Sarah in part 1, and we discussed her endeavors and pursuits to find justice for Alissa. So moving on, Alissa's mom died of cancer when she was only 9 years old, leaving Michael to raise Alissa and Sarah by himself. According to reports, Alissa's stepfather Michael exhibited an apparent obsession with her before her disappearance in 2001, although he denies those claims. We'll dive more into that later, though.
Michael claimed that Alissa was simply a runaway, which we covered that in part 1, and that she had left a note behind stating that she was leaving for California. However, there's no evidence indicating that Alissa ever left Arizona or even left the family home that day, after leaving school early to have lunch with Michael and returning home. She had left her cell phone behind, and reports indicate that her bank account holding $1,800 remained untouched. Michael also claimed that he received a phone call 1 week after Alissa's disappearance that was scrambled and difficult to make out, but he insisted it was Alissa's voice. He stated she was cursing at him and told him to leave her alone. He allegedly retrieved the phone records indicating the call came from a payphone in Riverside, California, about an hour away from where her aunt lived. But after traveling to Riverside and handing out flyers of Alissa, he made no progress in finding her. In 2006, Alissa's case went from presumed runaway to homicide when a convicted murderer in Florida named Thomas Heimer claimed to be a serial killer and confessed to killing Alissa. After further review of his claims, investigators found his claims to be false, ultimately leading 2 Phoenix detectives to look further into Alissa's disappearance. They soon realized that things were not adding up and that there were so many red flags.
Detectives learned that one of those red flags was that Michael had an odd relationship with Alissa. Not your typical father-daughter relationship, after interviewing Alissa's family and friends. Some of Alissa's friends claimed that Alissa told them that Michael attempted to molest her. They also learned that Michael Turney had Alissa sign a contract that gave extensive detail about what she agreed to do or not do until she was 18 years old. Most of the contract included specifics about sexual conduct and included rules that Alissa was to follow about not drinking or doing drugs. Another document was a statement that Alissa wrote where she agreed that Michael Turney had never physically or sexually abused her. Just an overall weird and disturbing contract that was put together by Michael. To make things even more disturbing, Michael admitted to police that he used to spy on Alissa at work. There were also cameras inside the home, including one placed inside a vent in the hallway, which gave Turney almost unlimited access to his stepdaughter, enabling him to allegedly have control over her, watching almost everything she would do, according to Alissa's boyfriend, John Lakeman.
The case took a shocking turn in December of 2008 when police executed a search warrant for Michael Turney's home. There they found more than 2,000 improvised explosive devices, 19 firearms, 2 silencers, and a document police say seemed like a plan to attack an electrical workers' union building in Phoenix. Detectives say the document also mentions Turney's belief that assassins were hired by the union to murder Alissa and dump her body in Desert Center, California. When asked in 2009 about what he had in his home, Michael Turney told ABC News, "Firecrackers, a few things to make some noise, start a fire. I wanted attention brought to Alissa." He denied there was an alleged plan to bomb a union building, saying it sounded insane and questioning why he would murder a bunch of innocent people. Michael Turney went on to plead guilty to unlawful possession of unregistered destructive devices, and the other charges were dismissed as a part of his plea deal. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison and was released in 2017.
Although authorities had not found Alissa's body and had no forensic evidence linking Turney to a murder, Michael Turney was arrested and charged with Alissa's murder in 2020, as we also mentioned in part 1. but was acquitted in July after Turney's defense motioned for the judge to dismiss the charges under an Arizona court statute known as Rule 20, which allows the court to enter a judgment of acquittal on any offense if there is no substantial evidence to support a conviction. As of today, Alissa has still not been found, leaving no justice for her or her family. We can only hope that one day the truth about what happened to Alissa will be revealed so she can get the justice she deserves, and her family can have the closure that they desperately need.
Okay, so one thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is, I know Michael is obviously raising Alissa and Sarah. I know we talked about in the last episode, we had talked about like Sarah and her brother. I just wonder, like, you know, if the other siblings had more of a role in everything that Sarah was doing as well. Not sure if they were older, kind of like how they feel too, because we know how her brother felt and we know how Sarah felt. And, you know, what still sticks with me is Michael making that comment about how he would tell Sarah on his deathbed about what happened to Alissa.
I know that's a really disturbing comment. And I know, again, if we go back to part 1, you and I discussed a little bit about our thoughts and feelings behind that and some of our speculation on why he would even make a comment like that if he was innocent. And he claims he's innocent. To this day, he claims he has done nothing to Alissa. Obviously, there's a lot of red flags. There's a lot of really disturbing details that came to light as we continue to do research on this case, including the cameras and all of that. But to chat a little bit about your feedback as far as the other siblings, I know when I was doing some additional research, Sarah and Alissa were the only ones in the home at the time, like for a long period of time. I know that the other siblings were older, so they were already out of the home. And so it was just the two girls under Michael Turney's roof at the time. So I'm sure there's so much that they didn't know of unless Alissa or Sarah had told them what was going on. But I'm sure they probably feel terrible, you know, if I'm just speculating their feelings. Mm-hmm. But they probably feel terrible, you know, the fact that they weren't there or maybe...
And didn't see the red flags. And
yeah.
Even all the explosives he had and the firearms and the silencer. I mean, obviously it's all speculation. We don't really know. And he claims that he had firecrackers. I mean, having a silencer is way different than having some firecrackers laying around.
Right. I mean, what were you planning on doing with all of those weapons? Like, we're not just talking like one firearm for protection, because that was another thing. Like during the research that I was doing, I kept coming across that comment from him was that, oh, all of the things that he was doing was for protection. The cameras were for protection for Alissa, and everything else, the weapons were to, I mean, you know, the firecracker comment is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But clearly there was some type of motive behind having all of those weapons. How long he's had those weapons is interesting as well. You know, was it after Alissa's disappearance, or has he always had those? Or was it like slowly accumulating over the years? But what's so sad is that I know there was a comment made about within the research that Alissa had told her friends that Michael had attempted to molest her. Mm-hmm. Now that was possibly just one comment. What about all the years? Clearly he could have allegedly been sexually abusive towards her. I can't see if he tried and attempted one time that stopped.
No.
You know what I mean?
I mean, things could have happened after her mom passed away as well. Like, he could have been taking things out on Alissa. You know, who knows? Honestly, who knows what really goes on in people's minds? I mean, look at all research that they've done when it's come to different serial killers and looking at their brains and their brain matter. I mean, Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. The list goes on, but who knows what he was thinking? Who knows what he genuinely did to her? I really hope that one day before it's too late, and I know I mentioned this in part 1 as well, that he tells Sarah what happened.
Yeah, I do too.
Because he knows. You literally said it.
He knows. He knows. And he, again, allegedly, this is speculation. This is just our opinion. These are not facts. If you're really innocent, why would you make a comment like that? Why would you make a comment like that if you're not guilty of murder? That's what we're suspecting. I mean, we clearly all know that something bad happened to Alissa, and it's unfortunate that they haven't found her yet.
Even if he didn't do it, he could have paid somebody to do it. I mean, That brings us back to, if you guys haven't listened, there are still no updates on this. And obviously when we get them, we'll bring them to you. But the Madalena Kojikari case, I mean, it's kind of went silent. It's went cold. I mean, they knew more in that case too, just like he knows more. I mean, maybe they aren't the ones that did it, but they know what happened. Just like Michael knows what happened to Alissa.
I agree. He absolutely knows. He absolutely knows what happened to Alissa. And I just really hope and pray that it comes to light sooner rather than later.
I do too.
I really do. And, let's talk a little bit about the contract.
Yeah, it's weird.
Because that is the weirdest thing that I've ever heard. That is not common. It's not common today. That's just not a common thing. Maybe from a parenting perspective, I mean, we're both parents. I have 4 kids. Sam has one who's still in the toddler stage, but I have older children. And I mean, I guess I could see, depending on what's going on in their life, if they're having behavior issues or...
But not a contract. That's just
I could see having like an agreement with your kids to do better.
A verbal agreement.
Right. But to have a contract, and I mean, that's not really the problem, the quote unquote contract. The problem is what's in the contract. Mm-hmm. That's what's disturbing. And the fact that he made Alissa write out an actual statement within the contract stating that he's never sexually abused her in any way. Why would you need to write that in a comment if you weren't guilty of it and you knew maybe something might happen to Alissa at some point and you needed her to write it for legal purposes? Because that's what went to my mind. That is the weirdest freaking thing that I've ever heard.
Too. I think it is really weird.
And it just makes him seem even more guilty, in my opinion.
Whatever he did or didn't do or played a part in, I just hope that for her sister's sake, for her other siblings' sake, that even for, granted her mom isn't here, but for the rest of her family, that they have justice for her and they're able to have some peace and maybe find something. Because it's just weird that she just vanished without a trace and that's it. No way that she's still alive, though, as sad as it is, but...
Right.
I mean, she wouldn't do that to her sister either. And if Michael is this monster that he is coming off to be, she wouldn't do that to her sister and just leave her sister in that type of an environment.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But yeah, hopefully there will be some updates to this case, again, sooner rather than later. If anything additional comes up with the Alissa Turney case, we will definitely be covering it. Make sure that you guys share this episode. We really want to get the word out. We want to be able to help Alissa, her sister, and her family. If you haven't checked out Sarah's TikTok and all of her social media platforms where she talks more about the case and shares more about timeline of events, make sure you go check her out as well. And if Sarah ever comes across this podcast, Sarah, we just want to tell you, Sam and myself, that we support you in your efforts in finding justice for Alissa. And we're here to help spread awareness and spread the word in any way that we can. Because that's our goal here. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to spread awareness for these cases and be a voice for victims. Mm-hmm. Before we wrap it up today, Sam and I want to chat a little bit with you all about a very special project we're working on, something we're going to be launching in the coming months. Obviously, as we continue to develop this community, we'll share all of the details with you. But we wanted you all to be the first to know before we officially launch. So we are planning to launch a community called Shores of Strength, SOS for short. And it's a mission to illuminate the often unseen narratives of true crime cases. It's giving a voice to victims and their families. Through advocacy, awareness campaigns, and compassionate outreach, we strive to create a supportive community, a shore of strength, where families find solace, understanding, and solidarity. Together as a true crime community, that's all of our fellow listeners, our subscribers, fellow podcasters, and true crime enthusiasts come together and we can navigate the turbulent waters of true crime. fostering empathy, and championing justice for those whose stories have been eclipsed by darkness. Shores of Strength seeks to be a guiding light, bringing awareness to these narratives and providing a beacon of support for those affected by the ripples of crime and injustice. So we're really looking forward to getting this community launched, and we hope that you'll join us and be a part of it. Once we do launch, we would love your support. A like, a share, a follow, that would be amazing, and spreading awareness for it. So make sure you share this episode. Let's help bring justice to Alissa and all of the other true crime cases that we'll be covering here on the Stay at Home Detectives podcast. We have so many cases to cover and so many victims to bring justice to. We hope that we can be a beacon of light to some of these families. Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We're going to wrap it up here. Make sure you tune in every True Crime Tuesday for new Stay at Home Detectives podcast episodes. We also have a brand new website if you'd like to check us out or stream episodes from there. It's stayathomedetectives.com.
If there's any cases you want to see us cover, you can submit it on our website, or you can email us, and all of our links are in the show notes.
Well, we'll catch you next time. Stay at home detective style. Bye, guys.